Welcome to How to Catch. In this brand new series, I will be showing you how to catch different species from a boat. In this video, I will be talking about how to catch the pollock. At the end of this film, you will know where you can locate the pollock, when you can expect to catch a pollock, 2 different methods of catching the pollock, what are my favourite lures to use, and finally, what rod and reels combos are the best. Here goes. Okay, so in this part of the video, as you all know from other episodes, we come and have a look at the Garmin sonar relief shading on the charts, and I try and show you where you can find pollock. So the further west you go in the south of England, generally speaking, the pollock fishing gets better. That's just how it is, and maybe that will change over the years. But basically, let's start with the summer, because when you're pollock fishing, you're either going to be fishing a reef or you're going to be fishing a wreck. It's going to be one or the other. Now, in the summer months, the sort of very late spring, summer, early autumn, you're going to find a lot of pollock inshore. You don't have to go very far out, and you're going to find them over a reef. Kelp beds, usually you will find pollock. So on the relief shading, whether you use Navionics or a Lawrence fish finder, but this is also a Garmin one, you want to be looking on your relief shading for areas of reef and rock like this. Now, you can fish this with hard lures. We'll talk about those later. Deep divers, you can troll across the reef, very, very effective. You can also float fish with live baits, but you can also use a direct lure, a Storm GT, but we are focusing this video on lure fishing, so we are going to talk about lures for now. But areas of reef inshore in the summer months, so late spring, you're talking May through to about late October. Areas of reef are great areas for the pollock. You can come very close in for the pollock. You do not have to go far out. Here would be very, very good for the pollock. They like fast running water, so if you can find fast running water, which generally speaking on reefs there is fast running water, because the water is being pushed up and over that reef, you'll find pollock. So I quite like trolling for pollock inshore reef, but you can also use a direct lure like a Storm GT and jig it up and down. So as I said, summer months, late spring, summer and very early autumn, you can fish inshore. You don't have to go far out, and you can try and find reef systems, and you should be able to locate pollock. Okay, so the other way of catching pollock is on wrecks. Now, wrecks will fish all year round, okay? So they'll fish in the winter, the summer, there's always pollock on the wrecks. Now, the inshore wrecks, let's say sub 7 miles, those wrecks particularly, again, fish better in that late spring, summer and early autumn. So that's an inshore wreck there, as you can see. I think that's probably about 5 miles off, something like that. Might be 6. So those inshore wrecks will fish the same sort of time as it would the inshore areas. So if in the winter you want to catch the pollock, you want to be going offshore. So from about November through to March, late February, March, you want to be going offshore. So 10, 15, 20 miles out, and you want to be fishing the big offshore wrecks. Now this might be a big one here. Let's have a little look. It's not a huge wreck, that one, but it's not a bad one. So you could fish that with your shad and boom sidewinder setup, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the video. And with that one, you'd be constantly drifting over it, starting the engine, coming around the wreck, drifting over it again. And you either want to start your drifting from the north or the south of the wreck if you're wrecking. So don't go straight through the middle. Pick either the north or south part, and keep sort of, if you're going south, go around the wreck like that, a bit more further down, and then you end up shoaling up the fish, and then you start picking a few off. So in the winter, go offshore to those wrecks, and you should be able to locate the pollock, because they go a little bit deeper in the winter to breed, so, and to spawn their eggs a bit later on as well. So that's what you want to be doing, getting a lot further out in the winter. Now, with the wrecks, it's very worth noting that this is quite a big wreck here. Now, this one might get overfished by a lot of other boats, because everyone pretty much now has access to relief shading. It's a bit of a game changer. I think it's probably going to bring the fish stocks down over a period of time, because the fish just cannot hide anymore. But that big wreck there might get overfished. What might get underfished, and I probably don't want to say this, but I am going to say it, is smaller wrecks, which go a little bit more unnoticed. Now, everyone will know they're there, but because they're small, people will sort of overlook them. They won't go and fish them because they think because they're small, they won't hold any fish, which absolutely is not true. So that one there, again, is quite a big one. I'm trying to find you a small wreck which people might overlook. Let's have a little look. What's this one down here? Yeah, no, it's small. That's a big one again. Small wreck. You really want to concentrate on them small ones sometimes, just because they don't get fished as often. I mean, that's not a massive one, for example. That's quite a small one. That would be worth trying. There's a couple of others which I saw earlier, and now I can't find. I should have marked them, really. Yeah, so something like this. Now, that is just a little blob on the screen, not much to it. Most people look at that and think, oh, there's not much to that. Now, that is where I would be going, because not a lot of people might fish that wreck, so it might have a better head of pollock on that wreck, as it doesn't get fished as often. I'm not saying it does. Again, the marks I give out are not marks that I know. They're marks that I'm looking at and just randomly finding on the fish finder to try and help you out. Again, there's another small one here, broken up one, another perfect one to try for pollock, because again, overlooks don't get fished as often, maybe don't get netted either. Now, obviously, when you're wreck fishing, what you want to be trying to do is finding a wreck that sits west to east or east to west, not necessarily north to south, because you'll get a much longer drift on those west to east wrecks. So this one here, you'd be drifting across like this. As you can see, it wouldn't take very long until you're off the wreck. So you ideally want to be looking for one where you can have a bit of a longer drift. But saying that again, a lot of people are thinking like that. So those ones which sit north to south, which is one like this, also one like this, which is another north to south wreck, I believe, what we just seen. Nah, not really, but you know, if it was a north to south wreck, those ones might get overlooked a bit more often because people can't be bothered to keep resetting their drift, you know. So do sometimes try and change it up a bit and try and think outside the box, is all I'm trying to say there. Right, well, let's now look at how to catch the pollock. Now, it's all about, for me anyway, lures, lures, lures. Now, what you're going to need, my personal favourites are sidewinder Skerries eels. They do some fantastic varieties. You've got a sand eel variety there. I actually quite like the 4-inch ones. These are the 6-inch ones, but I actually prefer the 4-inch, which are down here. Had some great luck on the small ones. I just think they're a little bit more tempted to hit them sometimes. But I had some very good luck on the white ones. I had some good luck on the sand eel type ones. And I've also had a few on the sort of pink ones as well. And they also do one called rhubarb and custard, which is this middle one here. They're also devastating for the pollock. Try and match the hatch, really. So here you've got a sort of mackerel type looking bait fish. So if there's a lot of mackerel in the water, a lot of sort of blue silvery bait fish, then I'd try and sort of pop that on. It's all about trying to match the hatch. You've also got shads, which you can use, slightly bigger. Again, that's a sidewinder one there. Had a few fish on those. But yeah, I do like those little white ones. So that, if you're using a shad and boom setup, those are the lures you're going to require. You're going to need some sidewinders, skerries, eels. Another method then we can use to try and catch these pollock are on hardback lures. Now you'd use these over the shallow reefy areas that I spoke about earlier, you know, the sort of 25, 30 foot sort of depths, and they're the ones that I'd be using, ones with the big veins to get right down to the rocks. I've caught a lot of pollock on those deep divers. If we turn this box over, we've got some others which have also been devastating. So this one, very, very good. We caught a load of pollock on that in Scotland. It was one adrift basically, but you have to troll these, so you have to be going at a constant speed to work that lure. Casting and retrieving, it will work, but if you're trolling it with your boat, they work a lot better. Over reef and shallow rock, deep dive lures, trolling those over the reef is a fantastic way of catching pollock, and you'll also catch bonus, bass, and other species as well, which are on the reef and rocky areas. So yeah, when you're on those reefs and you want to try in shallower water, try trolling these lures over your reef. It works really well. So let's move on to how we use the sidewinder shad and boom setup and how we fish those. So those are trolling at a constant speed, just ticking over about 1.5 to 2 miles an hour, and these are a totally different ball game, which we use over the wrecks predominantly and deeper reef areas. So let's take a look. So fishing over wrecks and deep reef area, the shad and boom setup, where I've had plenty of success. Now what you're going to require is a boom, so you're going to want to tie a swivel onto one end or a quick link to go onto your main line. I personally like using braid, so that goes onto your main line and up to your rod tip. Then you have your boom, you have whatever weight's required to get down to the bottom. I like to fish a nice heavier weight to get right to the bottom, so the line is vertically down. I don't like the line going away from the boat like this, because you're not effectively using that lure then. I like to be hard on the bottom so I can feel what I'm fishing under, and then I can wind up the lure like so. So a nice heavy weight, as light as you can get away with basically, but you don't want the weight to be going like this away from the boat. You want it fishing it directly under and constant retrieving the lure directly up. So you want that boom, and then on the end I either have a quick link or a coast link swivel, so you want to tie that onto the end of your mono, which is running through your boom here. And that is where your trace material, so a 50 pound or a 30 pound trace material, make sure your trace material is lighter than your boom mono and also lighter than your braid main line as well, because that way you don't lose this. If you get snagged in the wreck, generally speaking, you just lose a bit of line and your lure. So I'll go ahead and show you how to tie a lure onto here. So all you do then is you take off about 6 to 8 foot of your chosen leader material. That is the Limitless XT Super Strength Tough Stuff monofilament. That's 50 pounds, but I generally will use 30 pounds. I will go and tie a double overhand loop like that, one end of your leader, and then on the other, so you've got 6 foot of that, 8 foot of that. On the other end, I'll go ahead and tie on your eel or whatever lure you're using, but that's a skerries eel. And then that would go over, so your boom's here. That little loop there would just go over your link clip or your coast link swivel. You'd obviously close your link clip there, so you'd have your boom coming off the end here, 8 foot of trace line, and then your lure. And the way you work a boom and shad setup is that drops down to the wreck, it hits the wreck, and then immediately you start winding up like this. So as you're winding up, that lure then is coming up from the wreck and it's swimming up to the top. Now, I like to sort of do around about 20 to 30 turns up from the wreck. Now, depending how quickly you want to do it, nice steady pace, you know, just a steady pace on, just keep winding, no stopping, starting, just steady pace. If that doesn't work, speed it up a little bit. If they're pecking at it and they're not grabbing it, just do a little bit slower, but a constant wind, 20 turns up, release the reel again, let that drop back to the wreck, bang, and start again. And then obviously once you're off the wreck, take the boat around the wreck again and drift it again. So that is how to use a shad and boom setup on a wreck. It's super simple. If you get snagged up, hopefully you'll only lose a lure and a little bit of leader material, because everything above that lure and leader material is stronger than that line you've got attaching to your lure. So a little tip then when you're wrecking or you're deep reef fishing, because obviously that shad and boom setup you're using over deep reef, you know, 50, 60 foot plus, or you're using it over a wreck. Now, you will lose some of these. This is inevitable. You're going to lose 3 or 4 of these a trip, maybe more, maybe a bit less, but generally speaking, you do lose quite a few. I have a bum bag that goes around my waist, and in that bag, I have got all of my soft lures. It's absolutely loaded in there with fantastic, mostly sidewinder lures. That one there, actually, that black one, fantastic one for Pollock on its day. You know, in sort of dark conditions, the black is just fantastic. So have a bum bag with all your lures in it, and then I have that trace material just basically clipped on here as well. So I just literally, I put that through there, as you can see, clip it around my waist like so, and then I've got around my waist I've got leader material and lures, so I'm spending no wasting time leaning down trying to find stuff. I can just pull it out and retie another lure and a bit of leader if I need to. Obviously you can make up a load of leaders with loops in them with a lure attached, and then attach it to the boat, so you've got a few leaders there and you can just clip on and off you go again. Great way of doing it, and it'll definitely catch you a few extra fish if you've got this sort of setup. So let's just take a quick look at trolling deep dive lures for the Pollock then. Now that would attach directly to your rod tip line, so you're on your braid, or I like to have a leader, braid, then a bit of leader, just so there's a bit of abrasion resistance, and then you tie that directly onto your lure. And all you'd do, you'd start it off on one side of the reef, and you'd be trolling that lure about 1.5 to 2 miles an hour behind the boat. So mostly if that engine's in tick over, that'll be about perfect, and that will just go along just over the top of the reef, and normally the Pollock come up and smash it. I've had some great success on that in shallow ground reef areas. Really good, and you get a good bycatch as well with those. So don't generally lose a lot of them either. If you pair the lure to the depth of water, so it's not in the reef, it's just on top of it, you generally speaking won't lose any lures. You'll certainly lose less than a shad and boom setup. Right, so we've learnt where you can locate the Pollock. We've learnt when you can target the Pollock. We've learnt a shad and boom setup and a trolling hard lure setup. What rod and reel combos to use? Well, for wrecking and deep reef fishing, sometimes you're going to need quite a lot of weight. So I would recommend a 20 to 30 pound class boat rod. You want quite a tippy rod, so you want it a little bit of power in the backbone and the butt, but you do want a little bit of sort of subtleness in the tip, because that will just help work that lure a bit better. When you've got Pollock nabbing at it, the tip will just be able to bend down that a little bit more and hook the Pollock that a little bit better. That's just in my opinion. So when you're deep reef and wreck fishing, a sort of 20 to 30 pound class boat rod or a 12 to 20 pound class boat rod would be absolutely fine. I like to use a multiplier. I pair that with a nice strong braid, 60 to 80 pound braid, and then I will run a mono leader just as a little bit of an abrasion resistance, because obviously with fishing on wrecks, those wrecks can stand up quite high, and we don't really want our braid touching them bits of metal on the wreck because it will depart the braid. So braided mainline on your multiplier with a sort of 40 to 50 pound mono leader. That would be absolutely fine. Then we attach that obviously to the boom, and then we have our lure. So rod and reel combo for the deep reefs and wrecks. We've explained either 12 to 20 or a 20 to 30 pound class boat rod paired with a multiplier of around about 60 to 80 pound braid. The rods and reels you want to be using then for those lures we talked about, the hard lures, the trolling lures, the deep divers. I personally quite like to use a light spinning rod, between sort of 10 to 20 gram spinning rod. I quite like using a fixed spool so you can cast it behind the boat a little bit, and then obviously keep the spool open, keep the boat going so you get further away, and when that lure's 40 to 50 yards, close the bail arm and have the rod on the side. I'd say nice light spinning rod, 10 to 20 grams spinning rod, and a sort of 2,000, 4,000 size fixed spool reel is absolutely all you're going to need. Again, I pair that slightly less strength braid, maybe about 30 to 40 pound braid. I like the extra strength just because I just think it's a little bit more thicker, the braid, and it's a little bit less subtle. And if you do catch a rock, it's less likely to come off with a lighter braid. So they're the rod and reels I would recommend. So there you go, that's another how to catch video on Pollock this time. Any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Sidewinder lures, give them a check out. Honestly, I swear by my heart with sidewinder lures, they're fantastic. I will never change using them. I'm not sponsored by them at all. I'm just saying they're a fantastic lure to use, and I really do like them. Paired with the different setups that you'd use, they're bang on. So any questions, give it a comment. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. It's free of charge, and there's plenty of videos which will help you out, hopefully. And follow the other how to catches in the future or previously if you've not already watched them. Take care, have a great week. Cheers, guys.